to the RunRX podcast, where we talk about all things running. As many runners know, it's 90% mental. So join Coach Valerie and Coach Caroline as we go through the mental side of running.
Welcome back to the RunRX podcast. I'm your host, Coach Caroline, and I'm here with Coach Valerie. Coach, we were just talking before I hit the record button about one of our students. Can you tell the story again? And then tell me what he said, because I stopped you.
And this is just a random, because I hear this constantly, and I just want to say I've done this. Yeah. And I think everyone out there has done this too. So one of the things is, the story goes, he's going to up his exercise. And he said, I'm ready to take it to the next level. So he's going to add some cross training in. And then he also mentioned, I also hope this helps me lose weight. And this is a really common theme, and we're just about to go into the holidays.
Right.
I just, so my response was, learn to start eating for performance rather than eating as a reward when it comes to exercise. Like, if we could all eat like it's race week, think of how much better we would feel all of the time. Race week, not post-race, right? Because so many people, as many marathons as I've done myself, as I've trained people for, one of the constant themes is I cannot wait for my post-marathon meal, or you know what I mean? And I've earned it, like this feeling of earned it. And you have, don't get me wrong, like the joy and the fun, I'm not taking that away. But during training, you're eating more like, well, I have to do a long run tomorrow. I want to be hydrated. Let me see also, like, testing fuels, whether it's going to be like, I'm going to try this gel tomorrow, or I'm going to make sure, because I'm doing a long run, I'm going to eat healthier. It's just the way we all feel.
Right. So, maybe I'm going to eat breakfast, or I'm going to have a little bit of a late night protein snack, so that when I get up, I don't have to have breakfast, because I don't usually, things like that. We change up how we eat.
And instead of, and by the way, this is really funny, because I've been eating like this for so many years. I wake up and work out. My thing is, I'm an early morning person. Yeah. A lot of times I work out more than once a day. But the first workout of my day is the first thing in the morning. And I'm one of those people that I know what I can eat at night so that I can wake up and work out. And that took a while. That was test and retest. Yeah. I also know what I should not eat the night before if I want to get up and have a good workout the next day. And unfortunately, it's so much easier to find that.
Yeah.
And so much more fun.
Yes.
So, and I've gone through, like, we've seen all the crazes. You and I've been around a long time, so we've seen like the high carb, the low fat, the high fat, oh my gosh, the sugars, the no sugars.
Yes.
We've seen those all. And I've tried them all, by the way, in my own training, because it's easier to help other people when you've seen it. But what's really fun, and this is for everybody, when you start to switch your mindset of eating as a reward for exercise, you actually start to look at food differently, right? I mean,
so
you start
eating for performance rather than, okay. So you kind of said that backwards. So it's more like changing your mindset that I'm eating for performance.
Yeah. So if I'm going to eat this, how will it make me feel in my run or in my workout or whatever it is I'm doing, rather than, and by the way, this is kind of funny, because someone posted in the group yesterday that a woman ran the New York Marathon, and she decided that whatever they were offering on the course, she was going to have it. Uh-oh. Whatever food, whatever drink, she said, just having fun. And she fundraised. So she was just having fun with the marathon. And she ended up taking in 7 alcoholic beverages. And
oh my
so
God.
she said she had quite the buzz. And she then also, anyway, it wasn't very healthy, obviously, but she did it but she said, I also took 2 waters and Gatorades and whatnot. So one of the things that I would personally not do that myself, because I don't drink. So it would be really hard for me to do that. But my point is, some people like to do things for fun and challenge themselves. It should not be normal, right? Mm-hmm. But I used to know a lot of people. So we're like, oh, wow, that's a one, like most of us wouldn't do that. But I do know a lot of people, including myself, that when I first got into marathon training, everyone's like, you can just eat whatever you want. Like
Right.
you're running so much, just
Oh,
whatever you want, you can just eat. And you're
my
like,
my my when I was grueling through that long run, I would tell myself, bacon, you can go have bacon. That's my little mantra. I'm run for bacon, and that's because I would come home to the smell of bacon. That was like my deal with my husband. So no, I get it. It's really, it's how do you think, I know you can't speak for everybody. This is a big deal, guys. Like, we don't give diets because everybody's
right.
different.
Yeah. And
Like
you've got
Valerie
to
said,
test.
she gets up and doesn't have anything. She has a cup of coffee. I can't have anything personally when was working out with her in the morning. Some people have to have like a banana or something. So what we're going to talk about is not a diet regime or anything you need to do. This is just, I wanted to ask her some questions. So take this, guys, as a way to question yourself. So Valerie, if I were going to coach with you and I wanted to start like our member was, or even myself, whatever, and I wanted to start eating for performance, what kind of things would you recommend that I try? What would
I
you, as my coach, recommend?
Sure. First I would ask you, what do you normally eat? Because this is
Okay.
also really important. And we did this the other day. By the way, we've got a really great group of people in our community.
Yeah.
So if you ask a question like, hey, what do you guys eat before you work out? You will get 10 recipes.
Yeah. Yes, you will.
And so, but you have to be careful because you can't go, oh, well, she eats that and has a really good race.
Right.
Surely it'll work for me. But you can also try things to see what does work for you. So the fun part is first, let's see what you're eating. Like, let's see how you normally eat.
Mhm.
And then let's start playing around with trying different things before and after workouts. Like some people, like you said, you don't eat before you work out. Other people have to eat before they work out. Some people have never tried it. Maybe you want to try eating before you work out, see how you feel. So
Mhm.
these are the things that you'll test, and then you come back with data like this felt great, this didn't work for me. So what starts to happen is you yourself see your food also differently, because then instead of like rewarding, it's not about the like I'm only doing this workout so I can eat. You start
Right.
going, okay, I
Because I
need
want to go to
to.
the Christmas party or whatever.
Right. But you can have those days. Don't get, have fun, guys. But
Yeah.
in general, you'll start to go, okay, this felt really good. Like I felt like for me, I'm a coffee person,
Hmm.
but as I've gotten older, I cannot drink a whole cup of coffee and then immediately run. It has to be a
Yeah.
little bit of like time lapse, but I used to, no problem. So keep that in mind that things will change. Also, if you're doing an interval workout versus a
I
long
was
run,
just going to ask that if it's a different, do you eat differently for different kinds of workouts? So you're saying
sure.
yes.
And how much time do I need between meals? So everyone, remember, it used to be like with swimming, like don't eat.
Yeah.
You couldn't. What was it, like an hour or two
It was
hours or
an
something?
hour. You had to wait an
Just
hour before you could swim.
right. But everyone ate and swam when they were kids, like
Yeah.
even if So I always say, like, you have to like start doing things like, okay, I'm going to run at 5 p.m. Maybe you're not an early morning person. So what time am I going to eat lunch? How did my run feel? What did I eat for lunch? So then we start playing with that way more than what, you know, how instead of thinking your whole workout, I can't wait till after I work out and I'm going to eat this. You start thinking, okay, my workout's feeling really good. Here's what I had for lunch. Then you start planning, you start becoming a meal planner, by the way. It's
Yeah.
like default. And one of the things I tell people is the reason we don't talk about diet is I don't believe in diet. We do
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Hmm.
So, and it's really fun because once you start figuring out like what foods work for you, then those are the foods you can eat. And like you and
Yeah.
I aren't going to eat the same food. I don't think we have the same flavor, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
and I'll say this too, like we have people, in fact, just this morning, I have a woman on the other end where she's like, she wants to gain weight. So everyone's like, eat protein.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, it's not that simple.
Right. Right. But I mean, it's just funny that I know when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I said, yeah, because I know that's what everybody would say. What's really interesting too, and this would be kind of a way to experiment, guys, is I've done this before, what she's talking about, where I know I have a fight, I'm going to run after work, and maybe I have a salad for lunch, a big salad. maybe I don't have any protein in the salad, or I have very little protein in the salad. And then maybe you don't run as well. But then the next go around, you have some like a good amount of protein and some complex carbs or something, and you run great. Those are the kind of experiments we're
Right.
talking about. Like when I did start to do longer runs and I did have to eat something before I went on my longer run, I had to get up. It sucked, but I had to get up like 2 or 3 hours before, because I couldn't, like you, I couldn't eat and then go run. So I had to like get up and I'd grab I just needed some protein. So I'd grab peanut butter on a piece of bread and I would just eat it like half asleep at like 3 in the morning, so I could get up at 5 and then go for my long run. And it was a better run because my body
Right.
had some protein in it. And but some people can't stand protein, right? Some people, carbs are going to be bad for, or be hard on them. Some people, I used to always regret if I had Mexican food the night before, those kind of things. So you gotta change it up. But I think it's also important to look at not limiting what you eat. Like, not like you said, like, don't eat to lose weight, eat for performance. So don't be thinking, well, I have to eat a salad because I really want to cut my
Yeah,
calories, right?
because to be honest, I would not eat a salad before I run. No
A
way.
good point. Okay. Yeah. And so what would be your thought behind that? Just because it would just be too much roughage and make you
Yeah,
upset?
yes. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like then you got to start thinking like if the food I'm eating is going to give my stomach and my digestive system a workout, that's going to take away from my workout.
That's a good
And
point.
that's where that, by the way, that's why they invented gels and simple carbs. Is honestly, I mean, seriously, and but you again, like you've got to play with it. And I will
Yeah.
say this because I went to college. When I started college, 1990. Those of you that's 35 years ago.
I got you beat. 85, 84,
Yeah.
85.
So I was a kinesiology major and a nutrition minor.
Right.
One of my professors said, "You guys should drink chocolate milk after a workout," and I was like, "Ew."
Yeah.
Because that just didn't sound really tasty to me, to Valerie. He also said, and you should have Snickers because it's got peanuts for protein. And I was like, now that I can get behind.
Yeah.
And what's funny is he was part of the group and team that created what's now called muscle milk. It
Okay.
really started
Which I
with,
did like. I always like that.
right. But when it started, he was just telling people to drink chocolate milk because it was a good mix of carb, fat, and protein.
Hmm.
And most people like the flavor because it was, sweeter. So
Yeah.
it's how you can, and then, it's funny with the Snickers because then Power Bar came out and they were the first people, they were the first like bar besides
Right.
for bodybuilders. That was all protein. So then the Power Bar came out and it was carbs for runners. And my professor's like, don't waste your money, eat Snickers.
Eat a Snickers. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but 35 years later, we know it's much better to eat something better than a Snickers, right?
yeah. Yeah.
However, the simplicity of what we need hasn't changed. We still just need, protein, carbs, and sugars. So I always tell people, just you gotta play with it, you gotta test it, and be careful listening to every person out there.
Yeah, and if you run with a group or you have a friend that it's really easy to say, well, what do you use, and maybe
Right.
try it. But you can't it's still your run. And we've said this before. I used to say this all the time with the group I ran with, is yes, you and I are going to run together, you and I are going to train together. I'm going to try what you try, you're going to try what I try, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it's still you have to run your own run. Nobody's going to get in your shoes and do it for you. And if your friend has a good day, are you going to hold them back, that kind of thing. So really try to take ownership, I guess, of your diet along with your run. And like you said, try those things. Try those ideas that really are. What other things, like obviously protein's good.
Well,
He
it's
mentioned
so
fat.
right.
What
When
are
I was
some
going to
other?
say, it's so overwhelming right now. Like if you walk into, well, now everybody's online. So that's,
Yeah.
I guess, one thing. But if you also walk, even at the grocery store,
Oh
there's
yeah.
so many bars and drinks. And I mean, it's a little overwhelming. And so this is why you ask your friend that runs, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
like, you tried
Kind of
it.
narrows it
Like
down.
it was a lot easier back in the day when there was only goo. Like,
Yeah.
there wasn't all these others. And I'm just kidding because there's so many good things out there. So I always tell people first find what the race is going to serve. Because if you're going
Yep.
to eat whatever, if you're going to have during the race, whatever the race is having, you want to train with that. That's important. Two, decide if you want to use gels or regular food. Just you have to kind of have these because you don't want to wait till race day to try gels. You want to try them in your training.
Hmm.
And so yes, and this is things too. So like I'm a big fan of all three: protein, carbs, and fat. And
Okay.
right. And I get
Hmm.
for me, it's like avocados. I love
Hmm.
avocados. I get a lot of fat from that. But a lot of people don't. They want to get
Right.
something else. So again, we go back into let me see what you're eating. And then we can always give recommendations of things to try. Like I love white rice. Some people don't like it. So I'm like,
Hmm.
you can't just say, well, I mean, this is funny. Even when I first met my husband, um, I would cook for dinner chicken,
Uh-huh.
rice, and steamed vegetables. And if you asked him today, what was the last meal Valerie cooked, he would say, chicken, rice,
Right.
vegetables.
And what's so funny is
I
I
mean,
like rice too, but my husband likes potatoes, so it's always chicken and
so
potatoes,
we have,
chicken and
I mean,
potatoes.
but like I'll eat, my husband loves mashed potatoes, so we
Yeah.
have potatoes also. But my point is, for years, people were like, you can't have rice, you've got to have brown rice, you've got to have whole grain. And I'm like, have whatever you want, whatever works for you.
Right.
In
Right.
general, whatever rice it is, I'm still like protein, a simple starch, and
Yep.
steamed vegetables. Like that's
Yeah.
still what I'm in
Yeah.
because it works. So I always say, but for race days, let's play around with what works as well. And then also, that way you're not all of a sudden trying something new on race day. That's what's really important. And
Right.
what I've seen, and this is fun too. I started out in the high carb world. I grew up when it was fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everybody was eating bagels, and this was in the
Yep.
90s. Like it was all carbs. And then what people were missing out on, honestly, was too much carb. You can't have too much of anything, right? Moderation. But runners themselves weren't getting enough proteins and fats. And a
Hmm.
lot of times protein had stigma, right? Protein was for meatheads. Protein was for weightlifters and bodybuilders. They did all that high protein. We need
Right.
carbs for
Yeah.
endurance.
Yeah.
Well, you need it all. You need all three. It's just finding the balance. And then the fat is so important. And especially I think with women and men too, but it was so like you perform better when you start to get thinner when you run for
Hmm.
endurance. So then all of a sudden you're going low, right? We went through that low fat craze. Well, then people's performance started dropping. So then they were like, no, you do need fat. So then all of a sudden people were like, I'm only eating fat and protein.
Right.
And I'm not having any carbs. Like we've seen all of these, I've seen it all. I've seen the ketos and the paleos and all of that.
Yep.
And then I tell people, really, you've got to find what works for you because some people do really well with, more starch, less
Right.
or whatever. So
I
just
kind
like
of
you
got
said
to
that earlier. So we just know that what works the best is balance.
and
And
change it up depending on what the intention is of your run. Like you said, if it's an interval, if it's a long run, if it's an easy, I'm just gotta I want to just de-stress or whatever the case may be. Um, but one last thing that I think you'll agree with is the one thing that I don't think runners do enough of is drink water. This was something you and I were talking about recently, and I've been trying to drink more of it. And I'm amazed at how much better I feel when I focus on just water, just
staying
staying
hydrated. Yeah.
hydrated. And I know you don't necessarily take a lot of water with you when you run because you try to stay hydrated all day long, right? So
Well,
that you don't necessarily.
and to be fair, I do run where there's a water fountain.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, but that's one of those things where I think people start to focus too much on the gels and the goo and the food and the salt
Right.
shoes or whatever they need. You get all in, just like the shoes, you get all into the fads and you forget the essentials, which is your form, right, is
Right.
paramount to your shoe, and your water is paramount to any goo or anything else. Really, that's hydration is truly important when you're out there. And so I'm just going to kind of wrap it up with that, guys, that if you are looking for, like, what does Valerie eat? What is her diet? And she'll tell you, and I've traveled with her. It's, very simple food, very, she doesn't have a ton of carbs, but she mixes it up, and she's not picky. She lets me have the bacon off of her cheeseburgers, which I always appreciate. But like, we both like guacamole and things like that. So, I mean, she's not a picky eater by any stretch of the imagination. I will say, though, that you're a simple eater. You
Simple,
eat
and I eat the same thing
same thing.
a lot.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and in a lot of ways, I think that's what makes it easier for her. She knows what works, so she keeps those simple things. But she also has her splurges. What were you saying the other day is your big nemesis?
Chocolate.
Chocolate cake, right? So everybody.
Yeah, but that's what I tell people. It's not. I'm not ever telling you not. I don't ever tell people not to. I just say let's
Right.
balance and let's find
Absolutely.
when it's worth having the celebration meal, and when it's worth using your food as fuel.
Absolutely. So that's what I'd like you guys, as you're coming into the holidays and you're doing those things, and you're going to think, oh, I've got that party, I need to go for a run before the party. Yes and no, but just try not to. If your goal is to maybe make it through the holidays without putting on weight, moderation in all things. You can still enjoy wine, you can still enjoy, alcohol and sweets and whatever you need to, but just try to keep it in moderation. One last thing I'll bring up, because the gentleman that brought this up on the thread is somebody that I coached mentally about a year ago, and I'm gonna, hopefully he's listening, and I'm gonna remind him. I helped him because what I told him was, a lot of times we eat unconsciously, and it's so easy. You walk by a bowl of chips and you grab a bunch. You're thirsty and you actually grab something to eat instead of grabbing some water. So what I told him to do is to write down ahead of time. Tomorrow I'm going to have this for breakfast, this for lunch, and this for dinner. And you write it down. You say, you plan for it. Like she said, you plan for it. Now, if you plan for, say, tuna fish, right, for lunch, and then lunch comes around and I don't want tuna fish, I want a peanut butter sandwich. You can have that peanut butter sandwich, but you have to stop and kind of ask yourself, why aren't you eating the tuna fish? Why are, what's going on? Because a lot of times, guys, it's mental. This is where the mental side of things come in. Maybe you think tuna fish isn't going to be enough protein for my run. Maybe you think, like I used to, nobody tells me what to eat, even me. Right. I was very, very, so it really helped him to be more conscious of what he was eating. And so that's another thing Valerie's talking about, is eating for, not for weight loss, but eating for performance. If you actually try to bring it in, just like you should go out for a run with intention, have that be part of your training. I think it can really help you through these holidays to get your training in, to still do what you need to do, and not come out feeling like you lost 2 months. I guess that's what it all comes down to, right?
Sure.
So,
Have fun.
guys, yeah, and please, when it's all said and done, have fun. It is the holidays. Join us next week. We're going to be talking about some other topics. If you like our podcast, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends. We try to keep this short, guys, so that you can put it on your headset as you get ready. Maybe you're doing your warm up like you should be doing. Maybe you're driving to a track to meet some friends. But we try to keep it short so you get a little bit of inspiration before you get out there. And you have a great week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on the RunRX podcast. If you'd like to know more, join us at www.runrx.fit. And if you have additional questions that you'd like answered on the podcast, email us at support@runrx.fit.